Hey there, thanks for joining me on another template design walkthrough. So this new one is a fun one. This one's called Flashback. So this one's designed to give kind of that really old, colorful, funky 80s type of feeling and vibe to it. So this is a fun one for sure. But let's take a look at the layer options in here. There are a bunch of layers in here. Now I don't think you'll ever have to touch most of them, but we'll see what's in here. You know, again, I like to make these customizable, so it definitely is customizable, that's for sure. So let's just jump in at the top here. Starting at the top is our group of color grading layers. So if we expand this group, we see there's two color grading layers in here. So if you turn that off and on, you can see it's going to add a little bit of punch of the contrast and a little bit of just color toning work just to give it that polished look right at the end. You can always change opacities of these, turn them off or on to get the look that you want. Below that are facial highlight boost layers. As always, you can read the layer name descriptions to see what each layer is doing. This lower one is set so that if we paint on the mask with a white brush, we can brighten the facial highlights of lighter skin tones. And this one's kind of preset for darker skin tones. And we can take a look at that in just a moment. Below that is just some text, and this text has pre-set warps to it. So you can see, like for the year here, it's kind of pre-warped to fit in this little shape down here. And the same with this name text. It's pre-warped to fit within this shape here. You could always just, if you wanted that to be straight and not have a bend to it, you could always just type a new text layer in and just kind of rotate it in place. But again, that is kind of set with that pre-warp to it. Below that, so this is kind of that main text up front here. It also has some more complex warping done to it. So this is set up as a smart object. All right, so let's look at what's attached to it first, and then we'll look at adjusting the smart object. So attached to it is the color effect that's happening here. You can see this top layer here is the bottom color of that text. So kind of that swipe and stripe kind of effect added to it. So it's just a double click and pick or type in whatever color that you want that to be. So very easy to change that. And then this is just the overall color, so basically that top color. So if you wanted that to be darker or lighter, very easy to change that as well. Now for the text itself, again, this is a smart object. So to update this text, what you'd want to do is double click onto the smart object itself, and that's going to open up a new document window. And so that document window, let me fix this up. That document window here is going to have the text itself in it. So if you were to change this, so let's say we change this something to Wildcats, we just want to be sure that the text fits within this canvas. So what I would do is Command or Control T to resize this. Let's do a Command or Control 0 to zoom out. I'm just going to grab a corner, give my Shift Alt or Shift Option, and I'm just pulling that in to where the edges of the letters fit within that canvas. So once I know it fits, I can go ahead and apply that and then close this window. It's going to ask us to save. I'm going to say yes, and that's going to update that text. All right, so then you could always Command or Control T this to resize it as well. So if you wanted to make it a little bit longer, or sometimes I even like to just stretch it out, again, to give it more of that funky kind of bent shape like this. For like your longer words, I think that looks pretty cool. And then you could move it around in here and just click apply. All right, so this one's meant, again, to have a little bit of that wonky kind of misshapen type of look to it to go with that vibe. So feel free to play with expanding those things out, but that's how you would update that text within that smart object. All right, coming on below that, now here's a group, and this group is full of all these foreground shapes. So everything that's happening in here is layered within this group. So you can expand this, and you can see, for instance, if I turn this off and on, this is these three little shapes out here by the text. You can change the colors of those, by coming in, double clicking, and you could select the color. So if you wanted that to be cyan, and you could come and make that one, more pink or white or something like that. All of that can be easily changed. And then all of the shape layers that exist here, you can see this little stripe up here. I mean, you could literally change the colors of all of this to make it look however you want. This is kind of that main background shape that has a gradient on it, so you could change even that shape color. So again, there's a lot of layers, but you truly could make this look whatever kind of color combination you want. This can all be changed. And the easiest way that I recommend is just turn a layer off and on. Or you can see, like when you hover over the layer with the move tool selected, it's going to give you that blue highlight that shows you what layer is being selected. So you can see that as I hover down, that blue highlight's changing. So if you're on the version of Photoshop that supports that, that's one way to see it. But the other way is just turn the layer off and on, and you can see what each one's doing. So here you can see that this is the shape that's behind that name. So if you wanted to change that, something darker, lighter, anything, you could change all that as well. So just showing you the best way to do this is just turn them off and on if you're wanting to set specific colors, and you can see what each layer is doing. All right. So just know all those exist. That's that shape down here. There's a little shape in behind there. So it's lots of layering to create this kind of funky retro type of effect. So let's close this group up. As always, marked in red is where the subject group's going to be. We'll turn our subject on in just a second, but you can see there are some effects being applied to the subject, some inner and outer glows, again, to just create that vintage, funky, throwback type of look. If you expand this group, you'll see right here, subject here. This is our subject that we'll turn on in just a second as a test. Below that, this is a group, this is the middle layered shape. So everything's kind of sandwiched in here. So you have some foreground layers. These are kind of like some middle layers. And then you have your full-on background layers. And I have these middle layers because some of these sit above this gradient that's happening here. All right, so that's why it's structured like this. But if we expand this middle layer shape, it's the same deal. You're going to see, if you turn this off and on, what each thing is that's being impacted. So there's that little swipe that's happening behind the text. So you could always change the color of that. Just wanted to make that match that color there more. Now, anything that has that's a shape here that doesn't have, it's not set as a shape. In other words, you can't double click on it to change the color. That's because the colors are being changed in the effects themselves. So for instance, these top blue ones here, you would come into the effects by double clicking, and you can see there's some inner glow that has some blue. There's a blue color overlay, so you would change that color from here. So if you wanted to set that, say, to pink, you could set that in here, and then you could even change your glows, to match, more of a pink tone. So we could choose like a pink, make that bright again because that's an inner glow, so it's set to be glowy, so I want that brighter. And then the outer glow. So that's how you would change those colors because of the effects being added. It's in the effect option itself here versus just being able to double click. All right. So then you have these arches here. Again, these are also being colorized by the effects. So all these arch options here. And then this skewed rectangle here, again, you could double click on that one. So any that you can double click on, you can certainly change that way. And then if it's not being set in the effect and it's not a shape you can double click on, I've attached a shape color layer to it. So for instance, this kind of blue section right here, you could just turn this on, and now you could set that to be any color that you want it to be. All right, so just know that for pretty much for every piece in here, you literally can change the color of all of them. There should be an option for everything. So like I said, lots of layers because there's so many little pieces going on in here. Now, below that, we have our background gradient. So by default, it's turned on to this blue color. You could turn this off, and that's going to give you that true retro funky type of glow. Like this is that really like classic 80s type of vibe here. But if you wanted to create a matching overall color cast on that glow, it's just as easy as turning this color layer on, and then you could come in and just pick, whatever color you wanted that glow to be. So you could match like a school color or something like that in there as well. But I'm going to turn it off because I love that kind of vintage look there. All right, and then below that, this is our group that has our actual background shapes. So it's another group full of layers. So full of a lot of shape layers and stuff in here. Again, I don't think for this look and this design, you're probably not going to touch these a whole lot, but just know the options and the shapes are in there. All right, so there's a bunch of those glowing dots, so you could change the colors of those by changing these effects. Or again, if it's a shape where you need to change the color that doesn't have another option, it's just got a layer clipped to it. So you can see that's that little layer up here. So all of these are here. And like I said, the easiest thing is just turn them off and on, and you can see what each little layer is doing if you choose that you want to customize all that. The option is there. The good thing is if you get it all preset once, well, then you can just save that template file off for those school colors or whatever that you're doing. And then it's always there in case you work with that team or different teams from that league or school or organization. You always have a preset to all your colors you've customized. And then below that is just the background fill layer. So instead of black, if you wanted to make that like say a dark purple or something, you could come in and make some funky looks there too, or make it like a form of blue, and you could really push some retro kind of vibes in that. All right, so that exists in there as well. All right, so let's come up here. Let's turn our subject on. So again, it's as simple as dropping the subject in and then resizing them, to be whatever size in the design you want. You can decide how much of their body you want to show. I think that looks pretty good. But you can also see by default here's those effects I was talking about that's being added to the subject. This inner glow, which is creating this bright purpley highlight on the inside edge of the subject, and then the outer glow that's creating that purple outside glow there. You certainly could double click on those and change those colors as well. Instead of purple, if you wanted that to be more of a blue color, you could do that. Same as on the inner glow, you come and pick that blue. So you can make it glow different kind of colors. You could change the size of that glow. Just know that like literally you can customize all the colors and things on this, no problem. It's just going to take a time to figure out which layer it is by turning it on and off and setting that color. But with that said, this is a super fun and super funky one. I think it's going to be really cool for a lot of youth sports and stuff like that to give it that throwback feel. So I hope you had fun with this one. I really think it's a fun one to look at, and I can't wait to see how you use that one. Please feel free to share. I always love to see what you guys are doing with these, and I will see you on the next design.